I stood in the middle of my kitchen, the kind of space I once only dreamed about. Warm lights bouncing off the marble counters, copper pans gleaming like jewelry, and the scent of rosemary and garlic simmering in the air. My staff moved with quiet precision behind me, arranging wine glasses and polishing silver, their laughter mixing with the soft clink of crystal. Tonight wasn't just any night. Tonight, I was hosting three of the most famous chefs in the country, chefs whose cookbooks sat on my childhood nightstand, stained with sauce and scribbled with my little notes. And now, they'd be cooking with me, in my restaurant under my roof. As I tied the silk strings of my deep green apron, my phone buzzed on the counter. For a second, I thought it might be one of the chefs confirming arrival. Instead, my stomach tightened as I read the name. Hannah. My cousin. Her message was short, almost casual. "Hey Liv, heard you're doing some big event tonight. We're in town. Thought we'd stop by." I almost laughed, except the laugh caught in my throat. Hannah, along with half my family, had been the loudest voice mocking me years ago. My weird recipes. My wannabe chef dreams. I could still hear her saying, "No one's ever going to take you seriously, Olivia. You can't even make pasta without burning it."
And now, she was about to walk into this.
Into my world. Into the life they swore I'd never have. I took a slow breath, straightened my shoulders, and whispered to myself, "Let them see." I wasn't always Chef Olivia Hayes. Back then, I was just Liv, the awkward girl in small-town Ohio who loved standing by the stove more than going to football games. While other girls compared prom dresses, I was comparing spice jars in the grocery store, saving up babysitting money to buy a tiny bottle of saffron that I kept like treasure. But no one in my family understood. Not my parents, not my cousins, and definitely not Hannah. I still remember the night it all came crashing down. Thanksgiving, age 19. My mother had reluctantly let me prepare one dish for the family dinner, a roasted butternut squash risotto I'd practiced 10 times in my dorm kitchen. I poured everything into it. The sage butter, the slow stirring, the love. When I set the bowl on the table, my heart was pounding so hard it drowned out the chatter. And then came the laughter. "Looks like baby food," my cousin Daniel smirked. Hannah poked at it with her fork, wrinkling her nose. "Seriously, Liv? Who eats this mush? You're wasting your time. Stick to boxed mac and cheese." The table roared with laughter. Every giggle was a dagger. My hands trembled so badly, I had to grip the edge of the chair just to stay seated. My throat burned, my cheeks flushed, but I forced myself not to cry.
Not in front of them.
That night, when the dishes were cleared and the house had quieted, I slipped upstairs into my grandmother's old room. She had passed the year before, but her scent still lingered, lavender and cinnamon. On her nightstand sat a worn leather notebook, pages yellowed and corners bent. Her recipe book. I opened it with trembling fingers, running my hand over her looping cursive. "Food tastes like the heart of the one who makes it," she had written on the first page. Tears finally came then, hot, silent, unstoppable. In that moment, something inside me shifted. I realized that if I stayed in this house, in this town, listening to people who mocked the one thing I loved most, I would lose myself forever. So I packed a bag. Just a few clothes, the little saffron jar, and my grandmother's notebook. And the next morning, without a single goodbye, I left. It wasn't courage, not really. It was survival. Leaving home wasn't glamorous. It wasn't some bold movie scene with wind in my hair and a suitcase in hand. It was me, sitting on a Greyhound bus at sunrise with 50 crumpled dollars in my pocket, one duffel bag at my feet, and my grandmother's recipe notebook pressed to my chest like armor. I landed in Chicago because the bus ticket was cheap and the city felt far enough away to breathe. I rented a tiny room above a laundromat where the walls smelled like detergent and the radiator hissed louder than my thoughts. By day, I worked at a diner, scrubbing pans until my hands cracked. By night, I practiced recipes on a second-hand hot plate, burning more meals than I cared to admit. The smoke alarm became my roommate. But even in failure, I felt alive. The turning point came when I met Chef Marlene Jacobs, the owner of a tucked-away French bistro, where I begged for a job. She looked me up and down, unimpressed with my thrift store clothes and trembling voice. "You ever cooked for Full House before?" she asked. "No," I admitted, "but I've cooked with my heart every single day." She raised an eyebrow, then tossed me an apron. "Prove it." Those first months nearly broke me. 12-hour shifts on my feet, burns on my forearms, cuts on my fingers. Chefs shouting orders over the roar of sizzling pans. There were nights I cried in the alley behind the restaurant, mascara running down my face, whispering to my grandmother's notebook like it could answer me. But then came the small wins. The first time a customer asked to see the chef, me, to compliment a dish. The first time Marlene clapped me on the back and said, "Not bad, kid." The first catering order I handled start to finish. I started collecting those little moments like pearls, stringing them into a necklace of hope. Still, I kept quiet. On social media, I posted nothing but vague updates. Work is busy, or trying something new. I couldn't bear the thought of Hannah or my parents rolling their eyes at my progress. It was easier to let them think I was barely scraping by. Years passed and my world grew. I went from line cook to sous chef, then launched a tiny catering business out of a borrowed kitchen space. One wedding, one birthday, one fundraiser at a time, I built a name. People talked.
Articles mentioned me.
Invitations started to come. And then, unthinkably, the first celebrity chef reached out, saying he'd heard about my truffle gnocchi. I almost dropped the phone when I read the email. From there, doors opened I never imagined. Collaborations.
Pop-up events.
Investors who believed in me. And finally, my own restaurant. A place where I could pour my heart into every corner. The lighting, the music, the smell of fresh bread the moment you walked in. It wasn't easy. It was never easy. But standing in that kitchen, with Marlene watching proudly from the corner as my name glowed on the sign outside, I knew one thing for certain. I was no longer the girl they mocked. I was the woman the world wanted to taste. The restaurant hummed with quiet elegance that evening. Golden chandeliers dripped soft light across the polished wood floors. Each table glowed with candles nestled beside fresh orchids, their petals brushing crystal glasses that caught every flicker of flame. In the open kitchen, I adjusted the last garnish on a plate while my staff moved with a rhythm we'd built together over years, an orchestra of motion, precise and harmonious. The air was thick with the scent of truffle, rosemary, and slow-braised short ribs. And then I heard it, the familiar laugh. I looked up from the counter and saw Hannah, walking in with my parents and 2 cousins trailing behind. They froze just inside the doorway, their eyes darting from the elegant crowd to the gold-lettered sign above the host's stand. Hayes, a culinary experience by Chef Olivia Hayes. For a moment, none of them spoke. They just stared. "Reservation for Hayes," Hannah finally stammered, her voice betraying a nervous tremor I'd never heard before. My hostess smiled politely, then glanced toward me. I untied my apron, smoothed the silk blouse underneath, and stepped forward. "Welcome," I said, my voice calm, steady. "Your table's waiting." Their heads snapped toward me. My mother blinked like she was trying to wake from a dream. My father's jaw tightened. Daniel, my cousin, muttered under his breath, "No way." I led them to a corner table, the one with the best view of the open kitchen, on purpose. Every movement of my staff, every delicate dish, every satisfied murmur from other guests, they was all visible. They sat stiffly, like strangers in a foreign country. "You own this?" my father finally asked, his voice low. "I built this," I corrected, letting the weight of those words settle. For a beat, the only sound was the clink of glasses and the murmur of celebrity chefs greeting guests across the room. "Wait." Hannah leaned forward, her eyes wide. "Are those?" "Yes," I said evenly, following her gaze to the trio of world-renowned chefs laughing by the bar. "They're here tonight."
As my guests.
"As my colleagues." Her mouth fell open, the same mouth that once curled in mockery over my risotto. I let the silence stretch. Watched them take it in. The elegant surroundings, the signed photographs of culinary legends framed on the wall, the glowing reviews displayed like art, each stamped with my name. Then I leaned slightly closer, my tone gentle but unyielding. You remember when you told me no one would ever take me seriously? That cooking was a waste of time? That I'd burn out before I began? I paused, my eyes locking on Hannah's. Well, you were right about one thing. I burned. But I burned my way here. Daniel shifted uncomfortably in his seat. My mother fiddled with her napkin, her lips pressed thin. My father cleared his throat, but no words came. I straightened, a calm strength in my chest. This isn't just a restaurant. It's my life's work. And tonight, the world's best chefs are standing in my kitchen because they respect what I've built. The weight of truth hung heavy between us. Their disbelief cracked into shame, then melted into something quieter, regret. Across the room, a guest called my name, and I excused myself. But before stepping away, I glanced back at them one last time. The same family who once mocked me sat there now, silent and small, while the girl they dismissed had become the woman they could no longer ignore. After the main course had been served, plates of pan-seared halibut with citrus beurre blanc, garnished so delicately it almost looked like art, I excused myself from greeting other guests and returned to their table. They had barely touched the food. Not because it wasn't good, no, their eyes told me they knew it was extraordinary, but because the weight of the moment sat heavier than any fork in their hands. I pulled out a chair and sat down, crossing my legs slowly, deliberately. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the child at their table. I felt like the host. Liv Olivia, my mother started, her voice catching. We didn't know. I tilted my head slightly. You didn't want to know. The words weren't bitter, but they landed like stones on water, rippling through the silence. I could sit here and list every cruel word, every laugh, every time you told me my dream was worthless. I continued softly. But I don't need to. You remember. And so do I. Hannah flinched, staring down at her untouched plate. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. My father leaned back, arms crossed, but he couldn't meet my eyes. I took a breath, steady and calm. Here's the truth. I don't need your approval anymore. I built this life without it. But I let the word hang, like a bridge forming in the air. If you want to be a part of my world now, it won't come free. There are conditions. Their heads lifted, eyes wide. Condition 1, I said firmly. Respect. Not just for me, but for everyone who dares to dream something different than what you expect. You don't get to mock people anymore just because you don't understand their path. My gaze moved to Hannah, who bit her lip, tears shining at the corners of her eyes. Condition 2.
Growth.
Each of you needs to pursue something real, something that matters to you, not just what looks good on paper. Stop living small. Stop tearing down others to feel taller. I turned to my father, who had always preached practicality, but never risked anything himself. His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. And condition 3, I said, my voice softening, if you want a seat at my table, it comes with accountability. No more pretending the past didn't happen. You own it. You acknowledge it. And you change. Silence again. Heavy, charged. Finally, Hannah whispered, I was cruel to you. I knew how much you loved cooking, and I made fun of it anyway.
I'm sorry.
The words cracked something open in me. A part of me wanted to hold onto the anger, to savor it like a bitter spice. But another part, the stronger part, knew forgiveness was the sweeter choice. I don't need you to be perfect, I said quietly. I just need you to mean it. Change takes time, but it starts with truth. For the first time in my life, they weren't towering over me. They weren't mocking or dismissing me. They were listening, really listening. And in that moment, I realized something powerful. I wasn't just feeding them dinner. I was feeding them a chance to grow. The evening wound down slowly. Guests drifted out with smiles, arms full of gift baskets, cheeks glowing from wine and laughter. My staff stacked plates and wiped counters. The music softened to a hum. At the corner table, my family lingered longer than anyone else. For once, they weren't filling the silence with chatter or criticism. They sat still, watching me the way you watch someone you thought you knew, only to realize you'd never really seen them before. Hannah stood first. She smoothed her dress with trembling hands, her voice quieter than I'd ever heard it. Olivia, I meant what I said earlier. I was wrong. About all of it. And I don't expect forgiveness overnight, but I'd like to try. I studied her for a moment. The cousin who once made me feel like the smallest version of myself now looked fragile, stripped of her arrogance. And strangely, I felt no triumph, only a gentle ache. That's all I ask, I said softly. Just try. One by one, they echoed similar words, halting apologies, awkward admissions. My father, proud man that he was, could only manage, "You did good, kid." But in his eyes, for the first time, I saw something new: respect. Later, when the lights dimmed and the staff had gone, I sat alone at a table with a single object in front of me, my grandmother's weathered recipe notebook. The leather was even more cracked now, the pages filled with her looping script beside my own messy notes and splashes of sauce. I ran my hand across the first page, her words etched there like a promise. Food tastes like the heart of the one who makes it. And suddenly, it all came full circle. The girl who once cooked with a lump in her throat and tears in her eyes had become the woman who hosted the very chefs she used to idolize. The mocking, the pain, the long nights, it had all led here. I closed the book gently, a smile tugging at my lips.
Because they were wrong about me.
Every single one of them. And yet, instead of bitterness, what filled me now was something richer: gratitude. For the journey, for the fire, for the hunger that made me who I am. I looked out over the empty dining room, my voice steady, my heart calm. They mocked my cooking once. Now the world tastes my success.